Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Monster Hunter World video. Today we are once again diving back into the gameplay livestream to dig a little bit deeper into other aspects of the game, namely the map and the base camps. Admittedly, it would be nice if we had some new gameplay to work with and some high-res stuff at that, but right now, this is what we have to work with, and for those of you keen to go a little beyond the surface, then this should hopefully help fill that Monster Hunter void in your week. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated, and be sure to comment down below and let me know what you guys think. Now, just before I dive into the topic at hand, I actually want to take a moment to speak very briefly about an interview that cropped up online a couple of days ago. This is an interview with Fujioka-san and Tsujimoto-san, where they spoke about the various aspects of the game, but more importantly addressed this notion that Monster Hunter World is being made, quote-unquote, easier to cater to a Western audience, which is actually the complete opposite. To begin with, Fujioka-san said, and I quote, "We are not taking things that people in the West hate and fixing them to make Western players buy the game." People sometimes make that assumption or they've got that fear, but that is not the case at all. In fact, the core gameplay loop is still very much intact. You get quests from a main hub, a place we have yet to see but we know exists. You head out into one of the game's large maps, you hunt the monster, kill the monster, carve parts from said monster, and craft armor. Everything you have always done in a Monster Hunter game is still ever present. However, based on some of the changes to how we interact with the maps and the world around us, some of the basic interactions needed to be adapted. Speaking of the general loop and quests and whatnot, something interesting that cropped up in the interview is that the line between single player and multiplayer quests is apparently gone. Since we now have the ability to call on friends mid-hunt using the drop-in multiplayer mode, the interview made it sound like all quests are now going to be open to this. Now, if you've never played a Monster Hunter game before, typically quests are divided into Village and Hub. Village being the single player quest that you have to do solo, meanwhile Hub are the multiplayer quests. And again, going back to the interview, it seems like World may well be merging these into one to provide a unified questing experience that is both open to solo players and groups of friends. That's at least what I'm inferring from the transcription. I will leave the interview link down below if you guys want to read it for yourself. Now, to be very clear as well to anyone out there that is a solo player, Monster Hunter has always been a game that you can play entirely solo. You can play absolutely every aspect of the game solo, should you wish, but at the same time, there's always been a large portion of it that is open to friends and often better played multiplayer, just because hunting with a group of people is really, really good fun. And in the past, some people did often find, say, the village portion of the game a little bit boring because that's the part where you can't play it with your friends. So if they do adopt this new model where everything is open to both solo and multiplayer, then it just makes a much kind of cleaner experience all around. But again, just to be clear, until that's of course said in writing, then it could have just been misconstrued from the interview, but that is at least what it sounds like at the moment. But anyway, moving back to the topic at hand of difficulty, Fujioka-san then went on to say that the seamless nature of the maps really has a ripple effect on the gameplay. We have to decide based on that what to fine-tune and what to leave alone. If you want to ask where we draw the line between change this and don't change that, then that's what the difference is. Do our new seamless gameplay design and seamless monster interactions necessitate a change, or do they not? It certainly isn't an appeasement to get sales to a casual Western audience. The new gameplay has to mesh with the new concept, or else it would just be a mess. Perhaps the only system I would consider truly made accessible for accessibility's sake is in tracking monsters, where it used to be a case of finding a target, paintballing it, and then repeatedly paintballing it once all the original paint just slid off. We now have glowing tracks made of gorgeous particle effects that we're told are insects called scoutflies. These do still seem to require some work to enable. You have to go through analysing the footprints and the mucus to level them up, but once you've got enough of them, they will of course show you where the monster is. So there's no doubt that that is a much more friendly system. But to be clear from the interview, they're not trying to simplify the game, nor are they trying to make it easier for a quote-unquote Western audience. It is simply that some of these changes, for example, moving whilst drinking potions, eating steaks, gathering, that sort of stuff, given the seamless nature of the map, definitely makes a lot more sense than it did before. The interview then goes on to speak about their decision to switch to home consoles and what it offers them when being able to tap into the power of systems like PS4, Xbox One and PC, but ultimately it all rounds out with Tsujimoto-san saying, "You can trust us. We've been making these games for over a decade, we know action, and we know Monster Hunter, and we want players to not just enjoy the game, not just buy the game, but we want Monster Hunter fans to feel like this is a Monster Hunter game through and through when they play it. That is one of our key goals, and we are never going to lose sight of that. So don't worry." And that is something I've been confident in all along. From the moment I saw the first gameplay presentation at E3, from that moment I knew this was the series that we all know and love, so I have every ounce of confidence that the team, the core team no less, are going to create a fantastic experience. And with that in mind, let's now turn our attention to the actual topic at hand, the map and the base camps. If you've seen the gameplay, then you'll know that as well as having a mini-map present in the bottom left-hand corner, we also have the ability to bring up a physical map, this one here. While the world map is seamless, the areas are still denoted by numbers to make it easier to call out specific locations around the map, but something else that's cool is that the map now displays resources, herbs, mining nodes, bugs to catch, place to fish. All the usual resources you used to have to blindly run around the map looking for in previous games can now easily be tracked on the map, which is actually pretty handy since the maps are huge now, considerably bigger than before, so while the process of learning a map in the past and learning where the resources spawn worked, on a much grander scale it would likely just end up being more tedious. You'll also notice how on the side there's the option to zoom in on the map, and above that there appears to be different levels of elevation, similar say to a dungeon map in Zelda, where there are different floors. In this case, I can only assume that's for some of the higher regions, likely when they venture to, say, the top of the mountain where Rathalos makes its nest. Of course, this starting location, this is our main base camp where we drop in, and this lady here has been confirmed to be the main quest lady, the guild mom, if you will. However, something else interesting that cropped up in the live stream was that you can supposedly return to this lady mid-quest to pick up other quests. Now, there's no details yet on exactly how this will work, and how that'll mesh around the core quest that you're on. The quest to, hunt the main monster or monsters. It might well be that the quests in the past that used to be pretty tedious, like gather 10 herbs, mushrooms, or bugs, it could be that those sorts of quests can be done at the same time, so that you can essentially kill two birds with one stone. If that ends up being the case, that would be pretty sweet, since it would essentially streamline the whole process, and would then kind of remove the need to just go out specifically to gather herbs, only to then come back 5 minutes later. But again, right now, that last bit is a little bit of speculation, but we do know for a fact that there will be more interactions you can have with this lady during quests beyond just, hey, go and hunt this monster, thanks very much. Either way, this is our main camp, as you can see marked on the map here, but as I mentioned the other day, it is also possible to discover additional base camps. So at this stage, I'm not sure whether they crop up in fixed locations or whether they move, and we also don't know if once you've discovered it, it'll remain discovered for you to fast travel at any point in the future, or whether you have to kind of rediscover them every single time you venture to the map. But either way, for those of you looking to sleep or swap gear, you won't always have to run back to base. I mean, you'll never actually have to run back to base anyway, since you're now able to fast travel to a base camp, provided you are not in combat and not inside of the monster. So again, you can't just use it to escape death. If you are mid-combat, you're going to have to run for your life, try and get somewhere safe before you can then fly away. But also, being able to discover multiple base camps allows you to get back into the action much quicker. Also, in this instance here, you can see just how many items there are to interact with on the map. It seems there will be considerably more items to gather this time around, because of course not only do you have the usual items like herbs, fish, ores, bugs, etc., but there's also a load of items you can interact with to put into your arm cannons, so you can fire those, plus of course loads of other things on top. So I imagine there's going to be a hell of a lot of stuff to go looking for. Of course, once you return to your base camp, you can rest up as you've always been able to, a means to recover your health should you run out of potions, but the new thing is the ability to change gear. Again, going back to something that Fujioka-san spoke about during E3, the main reason behind this decision is simply because the maps you explore now are so unpredictable. Gone are the days of knowing that you'll have very little to contend with outside of the monsters you're there to hunt. These maps are now home to a wide range of monsters, and if they show up, you now have the option to change the way you deal with them. From here, you're able to change your armor and your weapons, and just to dispel any hopes and dreams that there might be a secret 15th weapon, this right here, that is a Kinsect. Not entirely sure at this stage why it's separate just yet, but using Monster Hunter Double Cross as a base, in that game you're able to swap Kinsects between glaives, so it might well mean that in World, they're going for a separate model where you can craft them and level them up independently so that when you go to, say, select an insect glaive, you can then choose the Kinsect that you want for that encounter. That would then allow you to make, say, 3 or 4, maybe power, speed, etc., and then swap them in and out accordingly. And for those of you guys newer to the series, this list of weapons from left to right is Greatsword, Sword and Shield, Dual Blades, Longsword, Hammer, Hunting Horn, Lance, Gun Lance, Switch Axe, Charge Blade, Insect Glaive, Bow, Light Bowgun, Heavy Bowgun, and of course the aforementioned Kinsect. Something else I do want to call out is that it's entirely possible that the notion of Gunner and Blade Master armor sets may well be a thing of the past. I can't 100% confirm this at this stage, but during the E3 demo that I saw, they went from Greatsword to Heavy Bowgun, and they did so without swapping armor. Now, that could mean one of two things. It could either mean that since it's early game, maybe some of these starter sets are universal so as to allow people and encourage people to test different weapons without the associated frustration of crafting a whole new armor set. Or it could be that they want them all to be one, since they then expect people to be swapping weapons on the fly in missions, and as such it would then be one less thing to contend with. This much we don't know just yet, I'm merely sharing what I saw at E3, so it's just something to consider. As annoying as it is to craft different armor sets for Blade Master and Gunner, I have always liked it and liked the differences between them. There's something cool about having a Gunner looking completely different to a Blade Master in a hunt, but for the time being, we'll just have to wait and see. Of course, whilst you're here, you can also change your Palico's gear too, both armor and weapon, so they too can be considerably more useful when out in the field. The other thing you can swap are your mantles. I mentioned before that I thought you could only carry 2 at a time. In game at the top left here, these are your mantles. When you use them, there's a cooldown before you can use them again, or at least that's what this meter makes it look like. And in the base camp, you can then swap them. So far we've seen 3 different ones, Gilly, Challenger and Rocksteady, but since there is a dedicated slot and the ability to swap them out on the fly, I'll be willing to bet we'll see more. Finally, something else important I want to highlight from this base camp, while you can swap gear, the core Monster Hunter flow is still intact. This doesn't suddenly give you the ability to restock your potions should you run out. So you'll still need to be sparing with your resources and save your potions or craft if you run out of them when you're in the field. After all, changing gear is one thing, but being able to get infinite potions, that would be game breaking. So for anyone concerned about that, rest assured these base camps are merely here to act as either fast travel points, a means to swap gear, and a means to rest up in the traditional sense. There is of course an item box here, but that will be similar to say the red box of old, the place you go to drop quest items like bugs you've gathered, mushrooms, etc. One final thing I will add in, since I've seen this crop up a fair bit in the comments, mainly from people who are newer to the series, but this map you see here, this jungle, this will not be the only map in the game. Monster Hunter has always had a range of maps for you to explore, each usually very distinct, examples being snowy tundras, blisteringly hot volcanoes, barren deserts, etc. Plus there are usually some more outlandish maps for when we fought elder dragons in the past, so while right now we've only seen the jungle, it's safe to assume we'll have a number of different destinations to explore. And on that note, that brings me to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and found it useful. I'm really hoping that at some point soon we can get some more gameplay, whether that be from another Capcom livestream, a trailer, something else, anything Capcom please. But in truth, knowing that the game will be playable at Gamescom, it is also entirely possible that things may go quiet until then, so that would be a couple of months away. I'm hoping to attend Gamescom myself so I can go hands-on and dive deeper into the game and help answer some questions from you guys, but until that time I will do my best to keep you as up to date as possible. If you have any questions or there are any other aspects of the gameplay that you would like explained a little bit better, then do let me know. But until then, thank you for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.